Hi guys, it's Arielle. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I hope you guys are all doing well. Okay, first things first, I just want to jump right in with the fact that we're filming in a very different spot today. I'm like so far back than I normally am. I feel like the lighting is weird. I haven't figured out the background yet, but basically, as you guys know, we are in the process of transforming our apartment, and I know a lot of you guys on Instagram asked me for an apartment tour. I'm coming with the apartment tour, but I just want to like finish the part 4 of our apartment transformation to like post on my main channel, so that is coming. But basically, we took the plunge last week. We had David and Alex come over to watch a basketball game, and if you guys have seen any of our apartment videos, you know that our couch was originally like pushed up against our gallery wall. Like, if this is where I am, my kitchen is over here, our gallery wall is over here, and then you have the TV. I'm not sure if any of this makes sense. Maybe I'll insert a drawing, but yeah, the couch was facing the kitchen and it was pushed up against the wall. And a lot of people suggested that we flip it around so that it was facing the TV and everything, and we were so hesitant to do that. I don't know why, I just was. But then when David and Alex were coming over, or as we were planning this night, we realized that the only way for everyone to see the TV and like the game was to flip the couch and have it facing the TV. And as soon as we did it, my jaw dropped. I was like, this is the greatest thing we've ever done to this apartment. It just completely transformed the space. It made it feel like an actual cozy living room as opposed to like a big kitchen and living room combined where you don't really know what's going on. It just like, it's hard to explain, but the vibes changed. It really felt so much cozier, and we've decided that we're going to keep it that way. The problem is though, the couch is, I want to say almost 3 meters long, and so it's like 20 centimeters away from our kitchen table, and the couch essentially is now where I used to have this chair and where I used to film and stuff. So yeah, we flipped the couch, but I have nowhere to sit while I'm filming, so I'm still figuring that out. And we're now in the process of looking at like couches and stuff, because if we want to keep the couch flipped that way, we have to get something smaller so that we can actually pass around the kitchen table to get to our room, which is also on that side. So anyways, that was a lot of explanation just to say that my setup is changing. I'm gonna try and figure out something more aesthetic and easier for me, because even to sit here, I had to like fold out the couch into the pull-out couch position so that it wasn't blocking too much light. I had to push everything out of the way. Like, it was not convenient. I guess that's the problem of doing YouTube out of your small Paris apartment, is that I don't have like a proper space to film. But yes, it's unfortunate because I have the camera facing my head obviously, but above me there's like all these plants and shelves and decorations that we've added. You can't see at all the TV stand, or I don't know, TV console that we picked up this weekend either. So yeah, if you do want to see more of our apartment, then definitely check out my main channel. I can even link down below, because we already have a lot of videos and stuff. It's just this fourth part to our apartment transformation is taking me so long, because I also want to include part of the bedroom, which we're changing as well. And like, I don't know, everything is just taking so long, but yes, there we go. That's where I'm at. I also want to quickly mention before I get into today's podcast that the summer meetup is officially 6 days away. 6 days. It's gonna be next Saturday, July 20th at 1 p.m. We're gonna do a picnic in the Parc des Buttes-Chaumont. I definitely already sent everybody an email, so if you did want to sign up for it, I will leave the link down below. Honestly, you could just send me a DM on Instagram. You could send me an email as well. I'll leave all that down below. But if you still want to come, you can. And anyone who has signed up, just make sure you check your email and stuff, because I am going to send on probably Tuesday or Wednesday like a Google Maps pin of the location, because I don't know if you guys have ever been to the Parc des Buttes-Chaumont, but it's huge. And so I don't want anyone to get lost or anything. I am going to send like a very precise location. So if you want to sign up, you still have time. Send me a DM, send me an email. You can sign up on my website. all that. You guys know I've like repeated it for 4 weeks. At the moment, just to give you guys like some info on, I don't know, the event itself, because I know if I was gonna go to an event by myself, I would be a little bit nervous. I'm always nervous when I go anywhere by myself, but I think we're gonna be between 10 and 15 people. I specifically stopped mentioning it on my main channel because I did want it to be kind of like a smaller group of people that connect more with like the lifestyle Paris content as opposed to the like really educational videos that I have on my main channel. So yeah, I stopped mentioning it on my main channel, so I do like the idea that's gonna be small. And we're gonna do games. I'm gonna bring Petanque and Mulkey and other fun get to know you games. And I'm also gonna bring pizza and wine for everyone. That's also why if you got an email and you haven't answered it yet, like please confirm so that I know how much pizza to buy. And I was even thinking for pizza, I was like, oh my gosh, should we go to Costco? Like Jean and I, because I don't drive, he would have to drive me. Should we go pick up like these huge Costco pizzas just for the fun of it? But I'm like, oh, I don't know how I feel about that. By the time we get back to Paris and get to the picnic, the pizzas will be cold. Like, if you have an opinion on whether or not you want, no. I'm just gonna get good Italian style pizzas closer to the park. Because Costco pizza is fun, but it's not the best. Anyways, what I was saying is that if you haven't like confirmed or anything on the email, please do, just so I know how much to bring. And yeah, the only thing that you have to bring if you're coming is sunscreen. It looks like it's going to be sunny, thank goodness, because we've had lots of rainy weather, as you guys know, if you're in Paris. And a water bottle. Make sure you bring like, I don't know, something to stay hydrated. And yeah, I think that's it. It's going to be so much fun. I can't wait. I'm very excited. I'm a little bit stressed. I think I'm stressed anytime I host or like create an event or anything. It's always a little bit stressful, but I'm definitely very excited. So I'll see you guys so soon. Now let's get into all of the topics that I have listed. My goodness, so much happened last week. It's crazy. The first thing that Jean and I did, I'll go through like all of these random things that Jean and I ended up doing last week. We ended up signing for a Petanque tournament. I always say the word Petanque. I'm not sure if you guys know what it is, but it is a French sport, you could say. Basically, you either play in like pairs, like 2 against 2, or triplets, 3 against 3. And you have a set of 6 balls. So if you're playing 2, you throw 3 each. If you're playing with 3, you throw 2 each. And you basically have to throw, the balls and get closest to the target, which is like a little tiny ball that you throw at the very start. Actually, I think I have a video of us playing pétanque in my Fura little vlog, if you guys saw that. But anyways, we signed up for this pétanque tournament. We signed up probably a month ago. And it actually ended up being on the day that we got back from Amsterdam, or the day after. So we got back from Amsterdam, we got maybe 4 hours of sleep, and then woke up really early to go to this pétanque tournament. And it was pouring rain. Like, we get there, it's just torrential downpour. We're all hiding out under umbrellas and stuff. The tournament's like 3 hours late. But it was honestly so much fun, and in ways that I hadn't expected. John and I are very much beginners, and I don't think we realized how much of beginners we were, because we play very casually. Like in the summer, if we're in Fura, we'll play around with some friends. If we're by ourselves in Paris, we'll go and play like a couple games just, against each other. And I don't know, I would say that I have a pretty like beginner but not terrible level. And we were probably the worst couple that had signed up for this tournament. We lost so bad. It was almost embarrassing. But we didn't come to win. Like, that was not our objective. Our objective was to, 1, kind of explore this space and hear more about what this like community center was, and 2, just have a good time. And like, that's all that mattered, and we did have a really good time. What I was so surprised by is that people were so incredibly friendly. Like, I'm an extrovert and I think I'm friendly and I talk to people and like get the conversation going. Like, people were just talking to everyone. People were coming up and talking to Jean and I. And I was so surprised that like other teams were like just small talking with us, or I don't know if that makes sense, but normally my experience in France is that French people are generally pretty reserved. And so it was very surprising to have like so many people try and engage in conversation with you. And really, like, it was very kind. There was lots of young people as well. Like, you'd think that Petanque is kind of like an older person sport, but there were so many young people. It was very cool to be a part of this tournament. They had a huge barbecue, they had a bar, music. It was just, yeah, it was very fun. We also went to go see the movie Monto Cristo with Alex and his friends. And I have to tell you guys, if you have the chance to go see this movie, definitely do it. I don't know if you guys will have, please let me know actually, if you're in the US or Canada or the UK, I would love to know if the Count of Monte Cristo is playing in your theaters, because it's a French movie, French actors, the film is in French and everything. I mean, the author who wrote the Count of Monte Cristo is also French and everything. But it was such a beautiful cinematic production. Like, the movie was 3 hours, and I realized that it was 3 hours in line, and I was terrified. I'm like, 3 hours of a French movie? I don't know if I could do that. But you couldn't even feel the time go by. The actors were so good. It had Petanque in it. I don't know, I'll put a picture on screen. I'm sure you guys know him if you've watched other French films. And yeah, it was just like the storytelling and the visuals were so good, because there were points where it was a lot harder to understand because the words were mumbled, or there were a couple of other European characters. I'm thinking like Italy. There was someone who I think was speaking Romanian. And so the people who were speaking French, some of them did have thicker accents, so it was hard to understand everything. And so there were parts of the dialogue that I couldn't understand, even though I have a really good level of French. But because the visuals are so good, I had no issues following everything. But yeah, it was so good. And I hadn't realized, because the Count of Monte Cristo is very much a story about vengeance. But I thought it was vengeance, but with like a pure heart, kind of like Z for Zorro, or I don't know, Robin Hood, you know what I mean? Like, people who kind of break the law but do it with virtuous intentions and stuff. But no, this was definitely a film about revenge, and I hadn't expected that, but it was so good. You guys definitely, if you have the chance to go see it, you really should. I loved it. Oh my gosh, when it comes to performances, Jean and I also went to an outdoor I'm sorry. I feel like I'm gonna cry because it was just so funny. Like, it's funny in hindsight, but it was pretty rough in the moment. Jean and I dragged Jean to a theatrical performance. Sorry. A theatrical performance of Shakespeare in a forest. And I hadn't properly read the description of the event. I thought it was like a condensed version of Shakespeare, and that it was like an hour and a half. But when we got to the theater, the person who gave us our tickets, explained that it was a 3-hour production. And the thing is, the thing is, we weren't prepared for a 3-hour production. Like, I walked into this forest with a t-shirt and sandals, and Jean walked into this forest with shorts and a t-shirt, and the theater started at 7, and if you count 3 hours, I mean, that's when the doors open, but the play didn't really start until 7:30. So if you count 3 hours, you're leaving this forest at 10:30 p.m. when it's pitch black. And not just that, but we take the metro to get to this forest, and we exit the metro, and it starts pouring rain. Like, I'm talking rivers of water, coming down the streets of Paris. We don't have umbrellas. So we run to the closest grocery store, we pick up our umbrellas, and we have to walk 30 minutes from the metro to get to this forest theater. And it's pouring rain the entire time. We get to the theater, it's still pouring rain. And that's why they kind of started a little bit late, is because the actors were still going to go on even if it was raining. But yeah, I think they wanted to wait for like the heaviest part of the rainfall to be over. And this outdoor theater, it also didn't have covering. So as a spectator, you were sitting outdoors and like watching this play outdoors, but under the rain. And at the start, the sprinkles of rain kind of stopped for maybe an hour. But then by the second hour, pouring rain again. And so Jean and I and like everyone in the audience are sitting there under our umbrellas, pouring rain, shivering because it's cold. Like only Jean and I didn't bring sweaters because I hadn't read the instructions. I really didn't think it was 3 hours long. But we're like there shivering in our t-shirts under the rain for hours. And it was just like a very interesting experience. Like I'm saying, I look back and laugh, but it was tough to make it through those 3 hours of freezing cold rain performance outdoors. And on top of that, I specifically picked this piece of theater because I really like watching Shakespeare outdoors. They have a similar kind of theater in Toronto. It's called Shakespeare in the Park. It's in High Park. If you live in Toronto, I highly recommend it. It's so well done. The actors, the costumes, everything is perfect. But what the theater in Toronto typically does is they perform a comedy, like a Midsummer's Night's Dream, or I don't know, a comedy of Shakespeare, okay? Hamlet, which is the play that we saw, is a tragedy. There's lots of long monologues, and I think it wasn't just the rain that was tough, it was also the fact that it was like a tragedy and stuff. And it's very interesting to me that they chose to perform Hamlet. I would be curious to know why, because honestly, it's so much fun to watch a summer comedy, especially Midsummer's Night's Dream. It's summer themed, it's garden themed, I guess you could say. And it kind of plays into the decor of outdoor theater in the summer. So yeah, I'd be curious why they chose Hamlet, but yeah, all in all, it was an interesting experience. And that is absolutely not, I love theater in the park. I enjoy watching Shakespeare and all that. It's a lot less up Jean's alley than mine. And so, yeah, I did feel a little bit bad that I put him through that. Another thing that I wanted to mention, I've already talked about how we had David and Alex over to watch the basketball game, but I wanted to mention something that they inspired me to do, because when they came over, we had probably half an hour or so before the game started. And this was the first time that they were seeing our decorated space. I think the last time they came over, they maybe came over for a board game night. I don't know, probably 5 months ago. But we really had no decor. So this was the first time that they were seeing our setup. And I've mentioned this in other podcasts and stuff, but we met at basketball, so we're all pretty athletic. But at the moment, we're all kind of going through the transition of being an athlete in your late 20s, which involves a lot more injuries and back problems and mobility issues than your early 20s do. And so it's funny, we spent like the first 40 minutes talking about all of our different pains and problems and sharing our what we do for stretches and stuff. And there was a point where David was like, "Do you have a yoga mat?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Could I maybe do my stretches? I need to do them every night before bed." I was like, "Go for it. You can even do it on the balcony and have the full Zen experience." But yeah, one of the things that I ended up showing them was my walking pad and my desk, because they work like 9 to 5s, and they also feel like they're not moving enough throughout the day, and that sitting down all the time when they're at work is really affecting them. And they do a lot of télétravail, which is working from home. And so, they were asking me, "What's your opinion on the standing desk you have? What do you think about the walking pad? Could you share the links for all these products?" I'm like, maybe I should start making a list of all the products that I really love. And that way I can share it with them, but then I can also share it with you guys, because like on all my apartment transformation videos, even on my weight loss videos, people always ask in the comments, like, "Where did you get that? Can you send the link? What scale are you using? Where did you get that light fixture?" And I figured that it would be a good list of links to share. So I'm working on the list. And yeah, if you are ever interested in something that you see in our apartment or see me wear or whatever, then let me know and I'll add it to the list of links. Another huge decision, not decision that I made, but I finally went through with it, was that I signed up for the Lingota Sprint to learn Italian. I'm actually so excited. As soon as I clicked pay and confirm and everything, I was running around apartment being like, I'm so excited, Joel. Can you believe it? I'm going to learn Italian. And then I called my mom and I was like, guess what? I just signed up for Italian classes. And her reaction was, so you're really doing it? You're really going to move to Italy, Arielle? I was like, yes. But yeah, I finally did it. I've signed up. And the reason why it feels like such a big commitment is that if you've never heard of Lingota before, it's an online language school. They used to sponsor quite a few of my videos. Actually, they are probably my number one favorite sponsor I've ever had. They were the first sponsor to ever believe in me when I was like, I had way smaller following. And they were just, I think that's what I appreciated, that they were the first sponsor that really took me and my content seriously. And not just that, but I loved their product. Like, I loved the idea of affordable language learning classes, especially because I was a French tutor. I know how expensive private lessons can be. And I also know that private lessons are not worth it unless you do at least 3 a week. People always ask me about tips to learn French and everything. And obviously the number one tip is to live somewhere where you're speaking French on a daily basis. But if you're going to take language learning lessons, you will never, I mean, I don't want to say never, but it's very hard to become bilingual or even conversationally bilingual in a language if you're not practicing it at least 3 times a week. And so anyways, the idea of the Lingota Sprint is to commit to doing either 1 class every other day or 1 class every single day for 2 months. And if you succeed the challenge, Lingota gives you back 50% of your deposit. And I think I ended up paying 350 euros for the sprint. And so yeah, if I complete it successfully, if I do the super sprint is 1 class every single day. The sprint is 1 class every other day, and that's the one I chose. So yeah, if I complete it successfully, I will get, 175 euros back in my bank account, which is very exciting. I think it's a great incentive to, really stay on top of your language learning. But yeah, I'm so excited. I can't wait. I'm going to document the whole thing if you guys are interested, because my Italian language capabilities starts and ends with ciao. Ciao bella, if you want. But I know no Italian. It is embarrassing since a large portion of my family is Italian or lives in Italy. So, it's always been a huge goal of mine to learn the language. And so I am so excited to be starting. It starts on July 30th. So it's coming up. But yeah, I thought I would share that. If you guys have any, as motivation, if you guys have any goals that you want to achieve or that you're thinking about, this is your sign to take the plunge. Another thing that I did last week was a little bit of shopping. Right now in France are the summer sales, and it's so unique, I think, when it comes to how sales work in France, is that they have 2 periods annually where all of the stores in France have these massive, massive sales. Like, I'm talking huge reductions that you really don't see throughout the year. And the first sale is in January. The second sale is in June and July. And so the sales have been going on for about 3 weeks. I want to say they end, I think, next week or the week after. And I am going to take you guys with me this week to go do a little bit of shopping so I can show you some of the stores and what the sales are looking like. I think that'd be really interesting. But yeah, I did start doing a couple of the sales. And the reason why I really was like, you need to do some shopping is because if you guys watch any of my vlogmases of last year, I can leave them linked down below, although I don't know, I'll do more vlogmases this year. But basically, Jean and I were filling these boxes that we wanted to donate. The city of Paris, in I think almost every single arrondissement, every town hall of every arrondissement, collects boxes where you can donate, they give you a checklist of one warm thing, one toy, one entertainment item, one personal hygiene item, and you have this checklist of things that you put in a box for different age categories and genders. So you have like 5 to 10 girl or 5 to 10 boy, and then you have teenagers and adults and all of that. And so Jean and I wanted to do 3 different boxes last year, but they were so expensive to fill. I remember I was going through hats and gloves to add in the warm item, and the stores were pricing things at like 20 euros, which maybe doesn't seem like a lot for a pair of gloves, but when you're trying to fill 3 boxes with several different items, it is kind of pricey to pay that amount. And so I'm specifically looking for, or at least during this one grocery shop I did last week, I'm specifically looking for items for these boxes, and I did such a good job. Like I was saying, these deals are so good. The deals that I saw for the Christmas items, the winter items, were 60 to 70% off. So I got gloves, hats, scarves, socks, toys, winter decorations, all of that. Like I have it all lined up for my boxes for Christmas this year. But anyways, the part that I'm going to vlog is I want to go to the Galeries Lafayette, which is one of my favorite department stores in Paris. It's not only is it a beautiful store, it also has huge historical significance, but also they have the most beautiful rooftop. I mentioned this almost constantly last summer, but if you have the chance to go to the Galeries Lafayette rooftop and have breakfast or a drink at the restaurant, I think it's called Créature. It's the restaurant on the top of their terrace that's only open in the summer. It's really not that expensive. You have the most breathtaking view, and the food is divine. I was surprised because normally a place like that, you're paying for the view, but here the food was better than the restaurants on the ground. So yeah, I highly recommend, and I think that's where I'll take you guys for my vlog. We can do a little shopping for home decor. I don't know, some fashion as well. So yeah, if you guys are interested in that, stay tuned. This Sunday as well was the first Sunday in a really long time that I did a full Sunday reset. And I was so intentional about it because I haven't had a break in probably 2 months. I'm at the point at the moment where I just have so much work that I work between 6.5 to 7 days a week, and I really feel it weighing on me mentally because I only think about work, but also with my relationships with my friends and with Jean and just in general, I feel like I'm not prioritizing that enough. And so last week I was so intentional in like getting all of my work done, all of my videos finished before Friday. And that way I could spend the weekend with my friends, with Jean and everything. And it was so nice to take that break. It is really something when you work in a numbers game, I want to say, because YouTube is very oriented around numbers. Like you're always looking at whether or not people are enjoying your videos or what the comments are and all that kind of stuff. It makes you're always tuned in, I want to say. And so it is a conscious effort that I have to put in to really turn it off, especially on the weekend. And so anyways, Sunday, I had a full Sunday reset. We did grocery shopping. I did so much meal prep. We cleaned the apartment. We hung up a few decorations. We watched a movie. I'm introducing Shutter Island to Jean. We only made it through an hour of the movie, so like an hour and a half to go. But yeah, we just had a relaxing weekend, but specifically Sunday. And I was just thinking about how good that was. If you guys don't do a Sunday reset, I highly recommend that you try it because it just makes you feel so organized, especially the cooking and the grocery shopping for me. I was like, oh my God, it feels so good to have 3 meals done and cooked in the fridge and not to have to worry about that, or worst case, not even eat because you don't have the food or the groceries done. And yeah, it was almost therapeutic, I want to say. So yeah, I highly recommend. And then the last topic that I have on my list, I saw a TikTok yesterday, And I thought it was so interesting and such a huge indicator of the cultural differences between France and I think a lot of European countries in general and North America. It was basically this TikTok of a server in the US who was saying that she will not serve customers refills if the customer has like an unlimited refill drink. She will not serve them a refill if they've paid and they finished their meal and they're just sitting to talk after their meal. Because for her, as a server who relies on the tips, it costs her money when people sit after a restaurant and don't consume. And it's so interesting because that is such a huge cultural difference. One of the first things I noticed when I started going out in France and in Paris and stuff is that in North America, you almost feel a pressure, at least this is how I felt, you almost feel pressure after you finish eating to get the bill and leave. You feel, at least I felt, you don't want to be a bother, you don't want to take up the table space, you're done, you leave. And in France, it is completely different. It is so rare that a server will bring you the bill. You can sit, you can finish your meal, finish your cocktails, you can sit at that table for hours. In fact, the norm is probably to sit for 3 hours, okay? And digest and chat and maybe have a coffee after your meal. Like, nobody is kicking you out of the restaurant and no one is irritated. The servers or the restaurant owners aren't irritated by the fact that you are sitting after having consumed and paid, because the servers don't rely on tips to make a living wage. And it's just part of the culture here to enjoy this space where you are. And I think it really is, I want to say sad, honestly, in any establishment in North America that makes their customers feel like they have to leave after they've paid and consumed and everything. Because there's already such a shortage of third spaces, places outside of your home or work where you can go to socialize, where you can go to just enjoy time literally out of your home and outside of work, that when you do go to a coffee shop or a restaurant and you are spending time socializing with your friends or your family or your partner and you can't really fully enjoy that moment to the fullest extent, I think it's too bad. I don't know. I really feel like those social moments are so integral to our happiness, to our well-being. I don't know. I thought it was really interesting to see the server's perspective and like hostility towards people who would hang around after having consumed, when it is absolutely the norm in France. You'll see when you come here or if you live here, it is so rare that anyone brings you the bill. That you will not get the bill until you flag a waiter down, and no one is going to try and kick you out of the restaurant unless you're eating maybe at a tourist trap or something. But yeah, I just thought that was so interesting. Now, I do have a couple questions that you guys submitted this weekend. I really try every weekend on my Instagram story to put a little question box so you can submit topics or questions that I'll speak about or answer. So if you aren't following me on Instagram, then you definitely should. But yeah, the first question comes from Robin, and she says, were you allowed to vote, and did Jean vote? Now, the election that Robin is referring to, if you guys aren't aware, are the snap elections that Macron called for the Assemblée Nationale, which I think is the equivalent to the House or the Parliament in the US or in Canada, I'm not too sure. But yes, and these elections took place over 2 rounds. So the first round was, I believe, on the 30th of June, and the second round was a week later on the Sunday, I believe the 6th or 7th of July. And following the first round, there was this impression that the extreme right might win the vast majority. And so for the second round, you had this interesting union between the center party, which is Macron's party, and the left party, who decided to faire barrage à l'extrême droite, which means to block out the extreme right. And they did this in regions where there was a split vote by withdrawing their candidates so that votes wouldn't be used on candidates that weren't clearly going to win, and that instead of votes being cast for their candidate, it was cast instead for the left or the center of the party that remained to sort of block the extreme right party from winning. I'm sorry, hopefully I explained that properly, but that's my understanding of how everything went down. And ultimately, the elections were reassuring, in my opinion. You guys, you kind of know my political opinion. I've already spoken about this quite a lot. But the left-wing party ended up winning, followed by the extreme right, I believe, and then Macron's party in third. But there was no vast majority. You have to have, I believe, 289 votes to win the vast majority to be able to pass everything you want. But because the three parties are relatively on par with each other, it's gonna call for a lot of discussion and debate to have anything pass through and anything, which is a whole other topic. But yeah, those were the results. I am not a French citizen, so I unfortunately can't vote, but Jean did vote, of course. I think for this vote, especially, Jean felt, I don't want to speak for him. I'll speak for myself. I felt like people like Jean and I were, in a way, targeted by some of the proposals in the extreme right. I don't want to say agenda, but I don't know. I'm not really sure what to call it. It's hard because I consume news and I consume political news and all of that in French. And so it's really hard for me to talk about it in English when I don't have all the terms in English at the forefront of my mind. But yeah, if you go back and you look at what was submitted, I believe in late January of this year from the extreme right party, which is the RN, the Rassemblement National, they submitted this text that really started to categorize what it means to be a French person and suggested that there should be restrictions for who is allowed to work in certain sectors and who isn't. And the RN is obviously, they have a lot of policies that are aimed against immigration and stuff. But they also started to talk about people who had dual nationality, and they were speaking on how those people shouldn't have the same rights to certain jobs as people who are 100% French. And if you look at Jean and I, for example, if we had a child, that child would be, they would have dual citizenship. They would be French and they would be Canadian. And it is very strange to be confronted with a political party that would look at our potential future family and say, even though you live here, even though your child was born in France, even though the father is French, this child, systematically, because they have dual nationality, isn't allowed to work in the medical field in France, isn't allowed to work in the government. Like, I don't know. I think in general, when you start to categorize what it means to be a good citizen, or you start to other people, I think that's pretty dangerous territory. I think as well that it's interesting because if you look at the birth rate of France, it's pretty similar to the case of Canada. It's at the last recorded birth rate was in 2023, and it was 1.68. You need 2.1 to, reproduce the current population. And there are a lot of social services in France, everything from healthcare to education to retirement, that are in a large part paid for, if not completely paid for, through taxes. And those taxes primarily come from people who are working. But when your birth rate is so low, like, you don't have enough workers to support the cost of all those social systems. And so in a way, you do rely on immigrants like myself who came to France and paid for their studies and work and pay taxes and open a business. Like, I think it's very strange to look at the circumstances and, you know, make people like myself the scapegoat for, you know, economical problems or whatever kind of problems. I don't know. This is not, my opinion isn't coming through very clear. I hope you guys get the gist of what I'm saying, but yeah, I think that for people like Jean and I who intend to have a family together, it is a little bit scary to read submissions that are, you know, targeting people who have dual nationality and stuff like that. Like, I don't know, it's just, I don't know. I think, yeah. I am a product of immigration all over, and it's just hard for me to read those kind of texts. But yeah, that was the result of the French election. And I didn't vote, but Jean did. To answer your question, Robin. The next question comes from Emily, who submitted the topic of dating in Paris before Jean, which is so interesting. Oh my gosh, I haven't talked about dating in a hot minute. I feel like I had a couple story times on my main channel when I was dating, you know, French boys a couple of years ago, if you guys want to go back and watch those story times. But I think what's interesting is that pretty much all of my adult life has been in France. So I've really only, dated French men in my mid to late 20s. And I did have a couple serious relationships when I was younger in university and stuff. And it's so interesting because when you compare a man from Canada, or I could generalize and say North America, it is very different from a French man or a European man because the cultures are just so different. For me, the biggest difference was, there's a couple differences. I think one of the biggest differences is there are different things that are valued. In France, I would say, while working is respected and it's important, obviously, that's not what people value most. They value their friendships, their family, and they value their social lives in a way that I really didn't see with North American men. And I say North American men because I have also dated American boys. But yeah, when it comes to North American men, you can see that the focus, at least what they considered to be of value from my experience, is that promotion at work or that fancy car or the bigger house. And that's generally my thoughts on comparing my experience living in Canada versus France, is that people value very different things and people spend their time in very different ways. And so that was just one of the first things that I noticed, is that the French are a lot more social, especially in a city like Paris that is really energetic. There's always lots of things to do. Something that's different as well is because Paris is so compact, and I would say this about pretty much any city I've been to. Like, I've lived all over the country. My first boyfriend in France, I met in Grenoble when I was a student and stuff. There are these very compact cities, and you're within very close proximity to each other. And so this close proximity combined with this desire to socialize means that making plans is a lot easier. You make plans more frequently. Dating feels a little bit less formal. I know from experience, like my friends in Canada who were dating and stuff, they would go on dates maybe once a week or twice a week if they were feeling extra fun. Just because they were so far away from each other. It was hard logistically to meet up after work. People are working really late hours and stuff. Another thing that's very different as well is that it's so normal to go for a drink or go see a movie like I did with David and Alex last week after a work day. Whereas in Canada, I really feel, or Toronto and Ottawa where I lived, I really feel like after your work day, you might finish late more often than not, and you kind of spend your evening at home, relaxing, meal prepping. I'm not too sure, but yeah, it's very different. I think the accessibility there's more accessibility in France than in Paris. That being said, I didn't have a lot of luck with dating French boys. My first boyfriend, I'm almost embarrassed to admit this, but he was, oh my God, he must have been the first French boy that I talked to on my exchange. And maybe it was his accent, maybe it was the fact that he was French, but I was hooked. And even though we weren't the most compatible, that sent us into like a 3-year long relationship. So yeah, I think at the start I was very impressionable whenever I spoke with, a French boy. I was like, wow, I'm in France, I'm dating a French boy. I think the first couple years I was very impressionable. And then when I moved to Paris, it became a lot harder to meet people, because one thing as well with a lot of French people is that they make these friendships at a very young age and they keep them throughout their entire life. Like, all of my French friends are still friends with their childhood friends, with their friends from middle school, high school, university. And so it's really hard to integrate as a foreigner. It's really hard to integrate into that. The only way that I did was through basketball, where I repeatedly saw the same people every week for weeks on weeks. So yeah, it was hard to meet people. I did use the apps for quite some time. And then it was hard as well, as you guys, I'm sure, have heard or whatever. I feel like this goes around a lot on TikTok when people are sharing their dating experiences, is that there is less of a focus on, I would say, committed relationships in Paris compared to in a city like Toronto or in Ottawa, where there is kind of this norm once you get to a certain age to settle down, to look for a more serious relationship, especially from men. Whereas in Paris, that really wasn't the case. Like, you say marriage and half the boys run because they're avoiding that, And as well, I've talked about this, oh my gosh, repeatedly, probably on my older podcasts on my main channel, but before Jean, I had a hard time accepting the nice guy as a partner. I don't know why. I mean, I'm sure I know why. I've been through this before on all my podcasts, but I was definitely one of those people that was like into the whole bad boy aesthetic, I can change him kind of thing. And Jean was the first guy that was like, immediately the first thing I noticed about him was how kind he was, how genuine he was, and it kind of like floored me how kind I thought his heart was. And so I feel like I kind of have a skewed vision, because I don't think I was dating very intelligently when I first moved to Paris and stuff. But yeah, oh my God, I feel like I'm just going on a rant. But let me know if you guys want me to talk more about that. I can think a little bit more about all my past relationships. Some of them have been okay. A lot of them were tough because our hopes and dreams and opinions didn't align and stuff. And I think as well, what I'll say is that because Jean and I played on a basketball team, and it's the same with friends, you see each other every single week, it gave us time to get to know each other. Whereas I think if you're just using the apps in a foreign country, French is not my first language, I don't have all the cultural references and stuff, it can be a lot harder to get to know someone in a country where that's not your first language, unless you're kind of forced in a way like you are on a basketball team to see them every single week for weeks and weeks. So yeah, I hope that made some sense. I can feel it getting really hot in here. The sun came out and stuff, and so I'm like, I feel I'm a little bit hot and irritated, hot and bothered. The last question comes from Kate, who says, would love a shop look in a shop where you buy your cosmetics. And I think this relates to what I was saying to you before about making a list with all the links of the products that I use and that I like and stuff. Most of my makeup I get from Sephora, and then my beauty stuff I get from Caudalie. And I can definitely make a list of what I use at Sephora. I'll be honest, I'm trying to change a couple of the products that I'm using at the moment. So maybe I'll wait until... I'm specifically trying to find a new blush and highlighter. So maybe I'll wait until I find like a product I really love to share. But yeah, I can definitely make that. And if there's anything else you guys want to know about what I purchase or like whatever you see, let me know. And I'll try and add that to my list. But yeah, I think that's all for today's podcast. I feel like this was a weird one because I feel not in the right place. I feel like it's too hot. No, I would never complain about that. Oh my goodness. After all of the rain we've had, I'm like, please stay hot. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to sign up for the summer meetup if you haven't already and you want to join. It's going to be on Saturday. And yeah, I hope you guys have a really good rest of your week.